Hello, this is Eric Beatty, and I want to welcome you to my newsletter that I'm hoping to be able to fill chock full of useful information on playing Texas blues guitar. Thank you for subscribing to this newsletter. I'm really excited about getting it out there. I've been working very hard on it and some other different projects. And this is the first in the series that I call the 4 important notes that you need to know when playing scales and solos. And we're going to go over 4 different notes, and we're going to be focusing on the minor pentatonic scale, specifically the G minor pentatonic, which sounds like this. Okay. The first note that we're going to go over is the most important note that you need to know when playing any scale, and that is the root note. It's the 1. The note that the whole song revolves around, the note that the whole scale revolves around, is typically your 1 chord or your 1 note, which is the root note. So if we're playing in a G minor pentatonic, then our 1 note is going to be a G. If we're playing G major, G whatever comes after it, the letter that is before that is the main note, G. So if this is G minor pentatonic, then our main chord, if we're playing a song in this chord, would be, in this key, would be G minor. So let's locate our root notes here, or our G's, that we need to pay attention to. First of all, the very first note that we're going to play is a G, and it's on the 3rd fret of the low E string. And we have a series of whole and half steps. Real quickly, a whole step is the distance of 2 frets from where you're at. So 1, 2. And a half step is the distance of 1 fret. Okay. So for this first note, it's going to be a pinky stretch. It's going to be from the 3rd fret to the 6th fret, which is a whole step plus a half step. Okay, so and these next 3 strings are going to be a whole step starting at the 3rd fret. And the last 2 strings are going to be the same pinky extension starting at the 3rd fret. One of the things I teach about learning scale patterns is it's a lot easier to memorize scale patterns when you pay attention to the shapes that are repeated. For example, we have 3 instances of that pinky stretch on the 6th string, the 2nd string, and the 1st string. Okay, and the other 3 strings have the whole step. So if we see these middle 3 strings here as this shape, then that's all you're doing on those 3 strings. And that's all I'm doing, is just manipulating that, but still staying within that whole step shape. So our root notes are the G's. So here's the first G, and let's move up to the next G, where your ring finger lands on the 5th fret of the D string should be your 2nd G. So we have 2 G's so far. Okay, the next G. Okay, that's your other G, and there's 3 G's in this particular minor pentatonic shape. This is the first shape of the minor pentatonic scale, which I'll refer to as box 1. And the cool thing about this is, whatever you play on the 6th string here, on the low E string, it's the same thing as the 1st string E. So it's the same note, because for one thing, both strings are open, or E's. So they're tuned to the same note, so whatever you play, if it's on the exact same fret, you're going to get the exact same note. Okay, so that's a pretty cool little trick there. But anytime you're playing scales and solos, it's good to land on those notes. Now we typically start on those notes, but it's also good to land on them at the end of a solo. Say I was playing some kind of bluesy thing. There's that G. And the cool thing is, since we have 3 Gs, we have plenty of options, and it's always good to have options when you're playing guitar. It just gives you more freedom to express yourself. So I hit all 3 of them there. The other cool thing is you can kind of go outside the shape, and not only can you just land on a note, you can do different techniques such as hammer-ons. And kind of really slap it there. Give it some vibrato. You can also slide up to it like I did the first time. Another cool thing that you can do is do some bends, and we're going to do this on the B string when we land on that 6th fret. Okay, so that's a cool little bend. You'll hear that a lot. And it takes some practice being able to bend that far and get a sensible amount of control to it. What you're wanting to do is bend to the actual G, which is here. And how you practice that is you pick the G note, and then you go back down to where the scale note is, and you try to bend up to that note. See, now obviously I messed up there, but you have to work on that. And you add a little vibrato as you go along. Add a little more distortion, it sounds like this. Okay, so you can just add little things like that to your playing, and especially remembering to land on that root note, that one note there. And there's also other things you can do, like different techniques such as dynamics. You can play a little softer, turn the volume down a bit on your guitar, maybe mess with a pickup selector switch down here. Okay, so that is your first important note that you need to know when playing scales and solos, is you need to know where your root note is. And it's also helpful. We've only went over one box shape out of all the total 5 box shapes that you can locate for the minor pentatonic scale. So it's helpful to locate your root notes in other places of the scale. If you're in different boxes, like we already said, one of the root notes is here. Well, here's another one here. It's helpful to know where all your root notes are, so that when you're anywhere on the fretboard, you can automatically land on it somehow, whether it be bending up to it, sliding up to it. And the other one is here. It'll be slide there at the end. But it's important to memorize those shapes and those notes, at least find out where your root notes is, or root notes are up and down the neck. So That's it for this lesson. Stay tuned for the next lesson in this series, total of 4, and we'll go over another note that you need to know to play scales and solos for Texas blues guitar. Stay tuned, and thanks for subscribing.